What's up guys, we are back with another motorhome upgrade video today. Today we're actually going to be installing our inverter. As you mentioned in the last video we've seen in the battery update, we actually said that we was going to install a Renogy inverter once we'd ordered it alongside our battery so we can get 240 volt off-grid. We're pretty much almost there now with our complete off-grid setup. So what we're going to do today is I'm just going to talk you through what you get inside the box with the Renogy inverter, and then I'm going to talk you through the install and some questions that you may get asked or you may find yourself asking whilst you're installing an inverter or looking for an inverter. So we'll get started and we'll have a look at what comes inside the box. So I'll spin the camera around so you can just have a look inside there. So this is the box. It comes in obviously a separate brown box around this, a Renogy branded box, but you get this white box inside of the package. I have opened it up just to make sure everything was in there before we actually started the unboxing and starting the video on here. So in this box you get, I'll put that to one side, you don't get that in there, that's something I've ordered separately, but I'll go through that. So you do get two what look like 100 amp hour positive and negative cables. They come standard inside the box. We'll talk about those shortly because I had made a slight change on these. Nothing against the Renogy ones, it's just more for my peace of mind. You get your Renogy remote switch, which we will be installing at some point today, and that runs through by like an RJ45 cable, I think that is. So yeah, we'll go through this as we're installing that, and that allows you to switch it on remotely, so you don't need to keep going under the seat. You then get your power cable, so when you're plugged into shore power, you can plug this into a 240 volt, and it does have pass through, so we'll talk you through some of those different features that we've got on there. And then this is the main article. So we went for the 2000 watt Renogy inverter, just because we don't need any more than that. And we have had one of these previously. You may remember seeing this on our camper van video. We did have one of these installed. But yeah, it's a really good piece of kit. It's got terminal covers there, you've got a couple of fans. But yeah, you've got two outlets on there as well. Obviously you've got your remote cable, and then you have got your 240 plugs, and then your input there. So I will just place this box to one side. You have to bear with me, I'm working with minimal room at the moment. So this is the inverter itself. So like I say, it is a Pure Sine Wave Inverter, and it does have a transfer switch built in. So when we're talking about a transfer switch, what that means is that when you plug in your power cable to a 240 volt source, which is this piece that goes in here, it basically switches it to pass through. So in our previous setup we did have it wired into the RCD, which had the plug sockets, and that allowed us to, when we got 240 volt, the inverter would switch over, and then it would basically do the pass through automatically for there and give those sockets the 240 power from the shore power. And then once that removed that, it then switched back onto the inverter. So we constantly had power going to our plugs. There's a couple of different things we can do when we install these. Is you can install them to your motorhome RCD unit. The only problem with that is that when it's connected to the battery and we're off grid, it will continuously try and charge the battery over and over again, which means we lose the functionality of the charger that's built within the Sergeant unit in the motorhome. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to actually plug this under the seat, and then we're going to put in a 240 volt plug socket within the seat base. So we know that we only need two sockets, we don't need any more than that really. We're quite happy with the two. It's got a USB-C and a USB-A. But yeah, we just bought this one to plug in, and then we also need a back box, which is over here for just sitting there. So it's a drywall box basically, and that just sits in there. So we'll put them to one side for now. Some of the things I've ordered as well with this is a mega fuse. So we've gone for a 250 amp mega fuse. This came from Amazon. You just get a couple of these. I think they're about $6.99. You get a couple of mega fuses in there, and you want this to run from your battery to the positive terminal on the inverter. Also, what I've bought on there is I've just bought some of the blue cable. I think it's Arctic grade is the name of it, and basically it's got a colder temperature. It can go down to minus numbers. I don't know the exacts on there, but always use this in your camper vans and motorhomes. It's probably the best grade stuff you can get, and that's just a 3-core cable. Then what else I've done is I've also, when I mentioned earlier, you get the two that come within the pack. These are rated to 100 amp. Just for my peace of mind, I have upgraded these to 35mm squared. I think it's 2 AUG wires. So these are high rated cables. It's just purely for my peace of mind. These are tested and work out the box for the Renogy. Some people may say that they're not thick enough, but obviously they wouldn't ship it with it if it's, you know, meets all the standards to sell within the UK. So they wouldn't be sold if there was any issue with it. So yeah, like I say, upgraded to these 2 AUG cables, the high rated. So it just gives me that peace of mind. Like I said, I think these are about £15 off Amazon. And that is pretty much it for the actual equipment. Obviously, the difference between pure sine wave and modified sine wave, you need pure sine wave to charge up electronics that are sensitive, sort of laptops, possibly cameras. So where you can't always go with pure sine wave. But yeah, it's a solid unit. Like I say, I've had these before and it worked flawlessly. So I wouldn't want any difference really. One question you may get asked, as you see here, you've got an earth terminal. So a lot of people do earth terminals install, so with an earth wire, they ground it to the chassis. You don't have to do it, but for Renogy to meet British standards regulations, they have to put the earth terminal on there. And the only reason you don't want to earth it to your chassis is that if you have an issue with your electrics and it has to dump 240 volts through your chassis, there is a risk there that it can damage your electrics, like your ECU, your lights, etc. And another question you may get asked is, do I need an RCD coming out of this? And the answer for me is no, you don't. Now, commercially, if you was using your motorhome for commercial purposes, you know, selling it and renting it out, you would need an earthing point and you would need an RCD, because they are the regulations that are set out about the UK. May be different for other countries. But yeah, we're not going to put an RCD on there. Like I said, I've had inverters before. We did put an RCD on the last one, mainly because we was probably a little bit uneducated when it comes to that. We're just sort of following other people's guides. For this one, we're just going to run a plug straight into the 2 plug sockets. It has got fuses built in somewhere. I'm sure there was a fuse built in somewhere. I can't remember where it is now. But yeah, they are sort of fused internally and protected internally. So probably not on a cheaper inverter, maybe not. But yeah, so just thought I'd run that by you. So yeah, it's up to you whether you have an RCD and whether you have the negative terminal, the earth terminal, sorry. But your positive and negative connections should be enough. But yeah, for this install, we're going to be using a jigsaw and a drill. So pretty much be able to do everything with a jigsaw and a drill. Probably need a Stanley knife and some wire cutters just to strip the ends of the wires. Unfortunately, I couldn't remember what I've done with all of my stuff, so it's taking me back to my van building years. So I'm going to get everything set up. We're going to install the inverter first, because I need the power from the inverter to use my jigsaw. So we'll get started. So one thing I mentioned in the last battery install video is you've got an extra set of M8 bolts. So these are going to come in handy today because we used the shorter ones last time. But we will need these obviously because we're adding another connection onto the battery. So these longer bolts will help. So if you haven't got them, just make sure you've got enough space for you to add those lugs on if you're installing an inverter. So I actually just realised it's probably going to be easier to get this set up here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to install the first positive and negative terminals. And we can do that just by clipping these, just unclip off, just like that. So we'll take the positive and the negative one off. And then somewhere I prepared earlier, I've got a Phillips head screwdriver, which I didn't bring out with me. Took it on the last trip with me, so we'll undo the positive and negative. Oh, so there's a first tip for you. There is a bolt underneath. If you just hold it, you should be able to just unscrew it. Just put that to one side, and we've got a couple of washers there. So we'll take the first pack, and we'll just put the negative terminal. I should only need to use one of the negative terminals actually, but we place that over there like so. And then we can just screw this on. In fact, it might be easier if I flip it on its side. to do this. So, I would have lost my screw. Where's that gone? The problem with using thicker wires, they're not as malleable. So we'll make sure we get a good connection on this. I will use some crimping tools, not crimping tools, but spanner to make sure we get put a really good connection on this. But I think if you get it tightened to a certain point, it should be okay. So let's just see if we can tighten this down anymore. Yeah, so that's naturally nipped itself tight. I'll just straighten that out a bit. So now that's on, I can take this and I can push this over the end. So we get a nice protected section there. And we'll do the same again with the positive side. Make sure I don't drop these screws. And then we'll do the same here. I'll just hand tighten this for now and then I'll nip it tight. Oh, I've done that the wrong way around. Which would help if I got it the right way. So let's move this. To stretch this out so it's straight. We can manoeuvre these around as we install it. But let's tighten this one up. So this one will need a bit more. There we go. That's nipped tight now. There we go. We'll do the same with this one. We'll put this over and then clip that in. The wrong way around. Yep. Okay. So they do go in a certain way. So what we need to do now is we do need to install the fuse block. So we've got one of these mega fuse holders. So all these are like a connection block with a fuse in there, and they do undo somehow, he says. So they just pinch off like so. And again, it's just another. I need to get some pliers on this. Okay, we'll come back to that because I need to get some pliers or a socket set, which I've got somewhere in the back of the van. So we'll return to this shortly. So what I've done is I've just used a spanner. I don't have a socket set. With these fuses as well, you can sort of just put them in position because we don't obviously want to. We don't want to connect it yet until we've connected the positive wire. So we can keep this loose and we can attach the actual positive wire to this. So if we unscrew this, and then when we're ready to connect it, we can just slide it in. So if I take the other, just saves you doing it when you're down in the actual where you're keeping it. Like if it's a tight space, it can be quite irritating to do it. So we'll connect this onto here. And then you put your 2 discs, washers, and then you put your spring washer, I think they're called. And then we will just pop this onto here for now. We'll keep it loose because we need to tighten it up anyway. But I think now we are actually ready. We can start to move over to the place where we're going to set it up. So we'll take you over there. So we have come across our first problem, as you can probably see from here. Let me just drop the camera down a little bit more so you can see. There we go. So you can see that it's quite tight next to the battery. So I think we're going to have to run the battery, we're going to have to put the inverter this way. Probably shouldn't have put the cables on first actually, that's made it probably a little bit more difficult, but may have to place the inverter there like that and wire it this way. And I'll put the 240V sockets on this one here. So I'm going to connect it up and then I think potentially I may do the the actual sockets on this side, because I think it'll be better. I was going to do them on the front, but yeah, maybe that side is actually better. So I'm going to get the battery connected up to get the inverter connected up to the battery, and then we'll fix the inverter in place. Okay, so we have everything installed and fixed in place now. The cables, I just need to basically just put them to stick them back up on the wall somewhere, so they're clamped away. But we're just going to test the inverter before we actually wire the plug socket in, just to make sure everything's working. So if we plug this into here, we've just got a little hairdryer that we're going to be testing out here. And then if I switch it on, so we have got a green and red light on there, and that was the inverter just ticked to say it's actually gone on, so this should hopefully work. And there we go, we have a working inverter. So if I get my phone, we'll actually be able to see the drawer on the app. Just bear me 2 seconds and I'll grab my phone. So we've got the Renogy app here. If I click onto there, we should be able to start to see this present amps should update. Yeah, so you can see we're actually using 26.5 amps now. So increase that. So it's gone down slightly. And yeah, we can see that we've got 1. Oh, I'm not even showing you, sorry. Yes, you can see the amps now, it's actually pulling it. But yeah, happy with that, seems to be working a treat. So now we'll get on to installing the socket. So again, just before we move on to installing the sockets, just wanted to go through a bit more on the inverter. So as we mentioned previously, it's got the AC transfer switch, so you can connect it both on grid and off grid. And it's uninterruptible power supply, worry free. So as soon as you, like I say, unplug that 240 volts, that it just transfers straight back over to the inverter. And it is, like I say, it's instant, the transfer switch over. So really good feature there. Especially like these inverters, the reason why we've got it is because we want to go off grid, and campsites are getting more and more expensive. We've obviously got the 200 amp hour lithium battery. Now we've got the ability that we can go off grid for a lot longer. The only thing we're sort of short on now is water. We are thinking of upgrading our solar and a DC to DC charger, just because we want that extra bit of power coming in to keep us off grid for even longer. It's got an internal DC fuse for enhanced safety as well, and it's 90% efficient. It's got the 90% inverter efficiency, so there's not a lot of parasitic drain on there, and it's very quiet as well. You couldn't hear it when we obviously tested the hairdryer. They are very quiet. We ran a 240 volt fridge in our last camper van off a Renogy inverter, and you barely even heard it switch on in the night. It was really great for that, so definitely worth it. And again, it's pure sine wave power, so it gives you cleaner, smoother electricity. But I'll leave some more links in the description to so you can go through some of the details and the specs of that. But yeah, 2000 watt inverter. I think they retail about 250 on Amazon, British pounds that is. But there is lots of sales. Renogy do have lots of sales, so it's worth keeping an eye out. And if we can get a discount code from Renogy to share with you, again, we'll put that in the description box below. So what I have done is I've created a plug with the blue cable. I got myself plenty of spare for when we're actually plugging it in. Yeah, it just makes it a bit easier for me to wire it into the socket. So that is the Renogy inverter all wired in. As you can see, we've got a wire coming off one of the outlets, and what I've done here is I've actually placed the Renogy remote switch and the plug socket just below this bench seat. I was going to put it on the end, but I prefer it next to the vent here. So we can actually now just remotely switch this on. We do have to turn the remote on here, so if I switch that on, you'll see that that is now on. You might have heard the inverter just click there shortly, but we should have power from those plug sockets now. The reason we went for those plug sockets is because they have got the USB-C and the USB-A, so one of us can use the plug to charge a phone up, or we can use one in the van. The sockets we've got there, we don't need to rely on our all powers or our VTM unit. It's much easier to just to plug in down there. So yeah, really happy with the installation. Yes, the Renogy setup is growing. I do need to have a check on our solar now, because it's a really sunny day, and as you can see, I don't know if I can zoom in. I'm trying to zoom in here. on there we're getting 0 amps, so there's an issue with our solar somewhere. So I think we might look at upgrading our solar, maybe get a new MPPT charger and a bigger panel, and just wire it straight into the battery rather than going through the sergeant, because it's a lot easier. But yeah, that was the Renogy 2000W inverter install. Again, another fan upgrade video. Like I say, there probably will be more when we upgrade. But yeah, really happy with that. Just need to tidy the wires up and just crimp them down a little bit, and find a new place for our bedding, because this is turned into the electricity cupboard, which I'm happy about because that's how I wanted it anyway. But yes, 10 out of 10. Thank you very much all for watching, and hope you enjoyed this inverter video. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and do all the good stuff, like, comment and subscribe. So I'll see you on the next video.